I'm male, 31, from a shitty part of Eastern Europe. This happened while I was working as a security guard in 2014. 1 or 2 months, I can't remember exactly the dates. It was cold and icy, but it wasn't snowing. I was working on facility for sewage water treatment. It was big, roughly the size of a football stadium, and it was on the edge of the city with the first houses, about 1 kilometer's air distance. And the facility was on the end of a small road. Around there were some wooded areas and farm like pieces of land, and behind that, a large river. My shift was from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m., 16 hours. 4 p.m. is when the last workers got out, and you were all alone until the end of the shift. To make things worse, there was a makeshift guardhouse that was basically an old container with a door and one window, a few chairs, a table, and an old TV. My job was to walk around the perimeter every 1 to 2 hours. Funny thing is that it was such a large and state-of-the-art facility with one guy guarding it without a gun or any kind of protection. Fast forward to around 1 or 2 a.m. I'm sitting in the guardhouse watching some shitty old movie when I heard some noise, like something had fallen on the ground. My first thought was that cats maybe knocked some stuff, since other security guard that worked there fed some strays, so they were coming back often. So I put my jacket on and went outside to check. Something I forgot to mention was the sound of machines that were there. It wasn't loud enough to damage your ears, but it was loud and filling the air outside and all around. I went outside and circled behind the guardhouse in direction of the thuds I heard. A few seconds later, from that direction, I heard an incredible scream. So strong it deafened the sounds of all the machines that were there. When I tell this to people, I can't explain how strong and long that scream was. I was paralyzed for some short time. I couldn't move any part of my body. When I got to my senses, I just turned around and went back in guardhouse, stood in there some time. The scream came from the right side of the entrance, and it was behind the metal fence as far as I could understand. When I collected myself, I put my mobile phone on recording in my front jacket pocket and took some metal bar I found inside, opened the gate, and went behind the fence 20 to 30 meters into darkness, because I wanted it to happen again so I had proof. But nothing happened, and I went back and locked myself in the guardhouse. The next hour passed, and I realized all the time I was in shock, confused, really strange feeling. Like something happened to me, but I wasn't yet aware what exactly had happened. In the direction where that scream came from is a long meadow and some trees and a river, nothing else. I called it a scream because I don't really know what else to call it. It wasn't a typical scream. It was high, but not too high-pitched. But it was strong, my God. I felt like it pierced me. A few days after that, I started to retain a little bit of memory of that exact moment. And I can't explain or see the full picture, but I think it was something white in the distance. That's all I remember what I saw, but sounded is something that will stay with me forever. We don't have mountain lions or cougars, anything like that. Two animals that can scream are foxes and peasants, and I spent many hours listening on them and couldn't find anything similar. Both animal noises are much shorter and weaker, and the pitch was off. All in all, after that, I felt confused, like I'm still missing some memory due to shock. And I can't remember much, just some white thing. I, female 23, live with my parents. Our house is 3 floors. We live on top. The rest is storage in a commercial kitchen. I'd say we have a nice house. Only the top floor is where we reside, with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. The first paranormal encounter I had was when my parents left me overnight. I was fine with it. It only happened a few times. Just me and my dog, Ginger. I usually just keep the lights and sounds up since I'm alone and not too comfortable, but manageable. Well, later that night, Ginger and I were in my bedroom watching TV. She started barking at the door that connects to the other bedroom. I know dogs sense these things. Slightly afraid, I just tried to calm her down and put the music on higher. Then she just laid on the bed, facing the door. Then, clear as day, I heard my mom's voice call out, "Ginger?" It sounded slightly muffled by the closed door. I know I wasn't hearing things because Ginger's ears perked up and she looked at the door as well. I freaked out and just ran out of the house. It was midnight, and I was like 5% and chatting with my boyfriend about how scared I was. I called my dad and even asked if I could spend the night in a hotel because I was really scared going back there myself. I even took sleeping pills earlier, but it didn't work at all. Eventually, a family friend came over and it was fine. In the second incident, I was in the kitchen cooking dinner or something. My dad was in my bedroom and my mom was in her own room. And I heard her calling my other dog, Nugget. It sounded like she was calling my dog in a slightly frantic manner. It got me curious, so I started calling out to her. No response. I thought she was outside the house and I called out to her again, and she came out of the bedroom asking what was up, and I thought she was outside. I asked her if she was calling my dog and she didn't say a word at all that night. The latest incident was today. Both my parents left me early in the afternoon. I was going to bake and they were going to the market. They took both the dogs, so I was left alone. 5 minutes after they left, I heard a voice coming out of my mom's empty room again. I pretended not to hear in a belief inside that if I don't react, it would probably think that I am aware. I didn't hear what it said. It sounded like a voice of my mom again. This happened years ago, when I was about 6 years old. I'm 22 now. I still can't get it out of my head. When I was little, I and my siblings will all get into my parents' bed and watch a movie with them until we fall asleep. I remember going into the room and immediately feeling uneasy, but I didn't say anything as it was dark and I figured I was just scared of the dark. We settled in to watch the movie, and a few minutes later, my parents' dresser, I saw a man standing there. I was frozen with fear. I didn't speak and would occasionally sneak glances to where he was standing. He was an older man with an unreadable expression on his face. He wasn't moving and stood in the same spot. The next morning, my dad informed us his dad had passed away. My dad had a dream where his dad had come to say goodbye to him before he got the news of his passing. I'd never met my grandfather before, and immediately I heard the news, I knew it was him I saw the night before, and looking at pictures further confirmed it was him. I've never told anyone this, and 16 years later, this encounter still haunts me. So my family have been experiencing some very strange but small things as of late. It all started with electronics being turned off randomly. Specifically things with switches, so lights and toys, but especially the radio in the kitchen, which we always have on. Everyone knows not to turn it off, so when it started happening, it was quite confusing. Next was my sister's and my mum's walking apps and monitor. My sister would wake up to a notification saying she has walked between 2,000 plus steps between the hours of 2 and 5 am, and the location set to just our house. She isn't a sleepwalker either, so it was quite confusing. But then the same thing started happening to my mum's step counter gadget thing. She'd wake up and it would have a few thousand steps on it despite resetting in the night before. Unfortunately, one morning my sister woke to find a crack on her phone screen and a notification from her walking app saying she didn't do that many steps this time. She sleeps on the floor, so dropping her phone in her sleep was out of the question. But we laughed a little, saying the ghost had gone for another walk around the house and dropped it at some point, and cut its fun short out of guilt. I felt bad for it actually, as it probably didn't mean to drop it. Well, the ghost has gotten a little more dexterous and is unplugging things now. Yet again, first was the kitchen radio, then extension cords and chargers. These things are in hard to reach areas with heavy furniture in front of them, so it's very obvious it wasn't the kids, and just today, my dad's computer was completely detached from all power sources. Now, all of us in my family know not to mess with my dad's computer, so it was very obvious who had done it. We had a bit of a giggle. We don't know why it's happening, but it's a harmless ghost so far. My mum's Christian and has made it very clear it isn't welcome if it tries anything harmful, and she prays a lot, so hopefully that's keeping other not so nice things at bay. We've all speculated it's a ghost in training, testing out its strengths and what it can and can't do. It's kind of cute. I just got back from a week-long vacation last night, and the same activity from the house I was staying in is going on at my apartment. I apologise in advance for any incoherence in what I say, because I haven't gotten much sleep the last week. The house we stayed at in was gorgeous, and since my entire extended family was staying there, 18 people, it was absolutely massive. It was split into two parts. The old side of the house, roughly just a basement, studio, and 3 bedrooms upstairs, and the newer side. I'm not going to go into much detail about the newer side as no paranormal activity took place there, but it was a gorgeous house. I shared a room with my girlfriend, and since we were the last to arrive, we got the worst room in the house. Not only did we get the smallest room in the house, it was about 10 by 10 feet, it was also on the old side of the house, directly in front of the basement stairs. As I had been driving for 6 hours that day, I was pretty tired, so I said hello to everyone and quickly got into bed to go to sleep. It was around 11 p.m. when my girlfriend and I got into bed. She's lucky in the sense that she can just fall asleep just about anywhere in 5 minutes, so she was asleep within seconds. I had a weird, uneasy feeling in my chest. Not necessarily a scary feeling, just that annoying alert feeling you get when you feel like something is watching you. To help ease myself, I hopped right down into a YouTube rabbit hole. About an hour into my journey, I could tell that my girlfriend was having a nightmare, so I put my hand on her arm to gently wake her up. But as soon as I touched her, she bolted awake, screaming, mumbled the ghost, and immediately went back to sleep. I had just started to get tired, and safe to say, I was sufficiently creeped out at this point. So back down the rabbit hole I went. About 2 hours went by when my girlfriend woke up screaming, again saying, "The footsteps are close," and passed out immediately. I decided I'm not going to sleep that night and went right back to YouTube. Another hour passes and I see my girlfriend sit up in bed, but she was still asleep. She moved so she was sitting on the edge of the bed and started having a conversation with the corner of the room. She eventually laid back down, but not before I was absolutely terrified. Activity died down after the first night, usually just creaks on the floor or knocks on the wall or door. The only other standout event besides movement around the room happened on the second to last night when something sat down on the edge of my bed. My first thought was that my cat jumped on the bed, but I remembered I wasn't at my apartment and sat up just in time to see the indentation lift up off the edge of the bed. It couldn't have been my girlfriend, as she was on the opposite side of the bed and nowhere near where the indentation happened. Also, the bed I was staying in was as firm as a rock, so it was challenging to push that far down into it. Fast forward one more sleepless night, and I'm on my way home. After a long day of driving, I got back and settled down with some Netflix. My girlfriend had plans to hang out with her friends, so she was out most of the night. I thought I'd finally get a break from the spooky stuff when my dog and cat both started tracking something around my apartment. The way their heads were moving, whatever they saw was moving fast. Now I've seen them track bugs before, but neither of them really focus on it too much. They usually just huff and ignore it, but this was different. Poppy, my dog, started growling when whatever it was moved into the corner of the room. My cat, Anna, jumped up right next to me on the couch while Poppy growled at the corner and started to slowly back up towards me. After a full week of crap like this, I wasn't even scared anymore, just pissed off and tired because it likes to keep me from falling asleep. Poppy and Anna both track the thing moving out the corner towards us, so she starts acting like crazy. After I get her to stop barking, I heard a growl come from the center of the room. It was pretty high-pitched, like a small dog or a girl. Judging by where my pets were tracking, it looked like it was very short, very fast, and could jump up on the table and counters. I stood up, stared in its general direction and said, "Please leave." I got a huge wave of chills and got goosebumps in places I didn't know I could get them. But I said it again much louder and more stern this time, while opening my front door to let it out. Whatever it was got really upset. It didn't do anything, but I could feel a lot of anger. My pets tracked it moving towards the door, so I thought I was in the clear. About 2 minutes later, my dog starts barking at the corner of the room where the door is, while my cat is on full alert, staring at the same place. At this point, I just give up and hope it just leaves me alone since I hadn't been violent yet. Just annoying. Poppy eventually fell asleep at my feet, and Anna had run into the other room, occasionally poking her head out the door to look in and immediately spring back into the room. I just gave up on dealing with it at this point. I put my earbuds in to block out the knocks on the walls and watched some YouTube. I decided to stay up until my girlfriend got back to let her know what was happening. But whatever it was, took this as an opportunity to mess with me. I was laying on my couch and kept feeling something poking me every 5 minutes. Not hard, just constant pokes on my arms and legs and feet. After this went on for a while, it pulled up on my nostrils. Again, I just ignored it because I learned it just gets worse if I engage with it. Whenever something like this would happen, I could feel the apartment get much colder, despite my thermostat saying it was 72 degrees. After hours of knocking, poking, pulling, and the occasional arm brush, my girlfriend finally got home. The second she got through the door, I could tell whatever it was left, as I had no uneasy feeling, there was no more weird noises. So I had one of the most restful nights I've had in over a week. The Swedish have a term for this. Varduga, also known as Vardvile or Vardiga, is a spirit predecessor in Scandinavian folklore. Stories typically include instances that are nearly deja vu in substance, but in reverse, where a spirit with the subject's footsteps, voice, scent, or appearance and overall demeanour precedes them in a location or activity, resulting in witnesses believing they've seen or heard the actual person before the person physically arrives. So I've experienced this with my mom and myself. My mom makes a lot of noise when she comes home. Garage door, loud footsteps going upstairs, and keys being hanged. One day, my mom came home and went upstairs. I called her name and she didn't answer. Next thing you know, the garage door opens and there goes my mom through the door. This is when I was super confused because I was like, who the heck just went upstairs? It can't be my sister. She's over there watching TV. It's also weird on my part because other people have claimed to have seen me before I arrived. Like one night I got home late and rang the doorbell. My sister opened the door and looked at me with a weird expression. I know I opened the door for you 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, no, I just got here. What are you talking about? I am absolutely fucking perplexed right now. So, I moved into a new apartment last August. It's this gorgeous old hotel from the 20s, which was converted into apartment complexes. Definitely has some Stanley Overlook vibes, though not as massive. Upon moving in, I jokingly commented to the manager about how I bet it's haunted, and she deadpan told me, no, it actually is. She said they are good spirits, but that there's countless stories, and every tenant who's been here long enough has one. She's a pretty esoteric woman, so I don't take it entirely seriously, but it definitely piques my interest. Talking to another tenant, he told me that the day he moved into his apartment, the entire place was completely empty and clean, as expected, except for a single ancient newspaper clipping on their refrigerator from the 40s or something, about a woman who killed herself jumping off the top floor fire escape, the floor his apartment is on. I looked it up and found the article online as well. Apparently that top floor is where the majority of the activity is. Anyway, I digress a little. So, upon moving in, I borrowed a drill from my friend who lives a few floors above me. I brought it down to my apartment, opened my door, set it down, went to do something else, came back to use it and it vanished. I searched everywhere. If it were my drill, I wouldn't have put half the effort in, but I had just borrowed it. And it was a nice drill, so obviously I felt liable for losing it. I searched in every nook and cranny of my apartment. I literally tore the place apart, completely moved my bed frame, looked inside every single drawer, looked even in the fridge, microwave, oven, etc. Places that I know I wouldn't have placed it, but just in case. After I couldn't find it at all, I theorized that maybe I didn't bring it into my apartment in the first place, and set it down outside to unlock my door. However, it wasn't outside, so I thought maybe somebody walked by and stole it. I asked the building handyman to look over the security tapes. He did, and told me that other than me, there was nobody else in front of my apartment in the time period that I said it went missing. He didn't show me the tape though, so the absolute only logical explanation I could come to was that he stole it himself and it's just saying nobody else was there. Of course, though, I was joking with my friends about how there's a drill poltergeist in my apartment. So that's more or less what I believed. Until today. I pulled out from under my bed this small pedalboard case I have, in order to get my guitar case behind it, but it felt heavier than it should have, given that it should be empty. I've pulled this thing out several times in the past year since I keep all of my guitar cases under my bed, but only now did I notice the weight to it. I open it up, and there it is, the fucking drill. Nonsensically in my pedalboard case of all places. There's absolutely no reason I would have ever put it in there. I was not drinking or inebriated at all the day I borrowed it. I also have had my carbon monoxide detector checked. The effort I would have to go through to go under my bed, get out the case, put it in, and put it back under when I knew I was going to use it that day makes it too irrational for me to have done. So yeah, I don't know. I have a drill poltergeist, I guess. It also is peculiar to me how I found the drill on the first day of the month I moved in 1 year ago, and I'm not sure that's just a coincidence. I just want to start out by saying I have never had a paranormal encounter in my life. I was always fairly skeptical. My last year of college definitely changed that. We always had the little weird stuff like hearing footsteps and chairs moving around in our kitchen. We always thought, lol, our apartment is haunted. After that, we began asking around about the building we lived in. Turns out, the girls who lived in the apartment next to us had to move out because they began seeing a man staring in their window every single night. This could be chalked up to some weird stalker dude. However, we lived on the third floor. Shortly after hearing this, I had the most terrifying experience of my life. I was sleeping in bed when I felt something tickling the bottom of my right foot. Right when I became fully aware of what was going on, I felt something jump on the bed with me and sit on my chest, while also holding my arms down. I was a heavyweight wrestler in high school, and I've never felt something hold me down this strong in my entire life. I began to struggle and try to scream simultaneously, but I felt as though something was also covering my mouth. Next, I felt deep, painful scratches on the tops of my feet and arms bilaterally. It's hard to explain, but I felt them very deeply. Not just on the skin, but rather further down into my tissue. No matter what I did, I couldn't scream or get free from this force. Eventually, it let up, and I was able to sit up on my bed and turn on my light. I'm normally a very neat person, but I woke up to a completely destroyed room. My TV was laying face down on the floor with notes ripped out of my notebooks and strewn all over the place in my room. I now fear that since I've moved home, the entity has followed me. Does anyone have any advice as to what I should do? I would chalk this up to sleep paralysis, but due to the physical evidence, I can't convince myself that it is. I've recently moved into this new house built by my parents, and since then, I've started seeing stuff from the corner of my eyes. Weird black or white shadows or warps. I literally thought I was starting to have schizophrenia. I have to mention that I'm used to ghosts and such. At my old house, I was probably haunted by a poltergeist. I was hearing loud banging from the closet, hard footsteps, voices right next to my ear, and things would randomly fall, scaring the shit out of me. Anyways, I've tried to communicate with the current spirit one night, and when I asked what does it want from me, the ghost stopped messing around with me for that night. Literally earlier, I saw a hand above my head in the mirror for a fraction of a second, and then I felt like I was being tickled. I thought the ghost never tried to hurt me or anything. The thing is, I read online that demons sometimes try to cover themselves as good ghosts. And another thing that happened after I started seeing stuff in the corner of my eyes was that I started feeling emotional and physically drained for no reason. Does anybody know what is messing with me? And what should I do? So, for as long as I can remember, whether we've lived away or in the family house, if you will, we've had family cause paranormal activity. Like my grandpa turning my toys on when I was little, until my dad said to stop because my mom was freaking. Same thing happened when I moved in with my grandma. Only thing is that my great grandma and my great grandpa a few years later after he passed would get in on it too. Never felt bad, it was just always comforting or fun. My great grandma would turn on the living room TV and they'd all watch over us, so it was all cool. However, after we did a reno on the interior of the house, we started to feel them a bit less, but they were still there. The issue that comes in is what else had decided to come here. After the reno, the thing that started to happen was when walking down the hallway from the dining room, you get the awful panicked feeling that you have to run. I'm someone who, when my fight or flight kicks in, I tend to fight. This, however, makes me want to full sprint to my room. Feels like something is hovering right behind you, just about to grab you. This is a feeling that is felt by all five of us in the house, and one of the few that you never see, but feel. I'll preface this by saying that this has been happening for a few years, and yes, we have checked the whole carbon monoxide thing. Within a few months, all the rest started showing up as well, and they are all easily recognisable by the part of the house they inhabit and what they do. I'll just list them to make it easier to keep track of. Entity number 1. The one previously mentioned that takes up the hallway leading to my room. Feels like you're being chased, and no matter whether you run or fight when faced with a threat, it'll make you run. Has never been seen, just felt. Is known by every resident of the house. Entity number 2. The one that is no longer present, presumably, but used to be in the smaller of the two bathrooms. My sister is the only one that experienced this one, and got her so bad, my dad grabbed his gun, thinking there was actually someone in the house. She used to have my room, which is in a corner of the house. On the other wall, all of that corner is the wall to the hallway and where the door to the bathroom is. She heard some kind of singing coming from it, and it freaked her out so much. She ran screaming and crying to our parents' room. No one saw anything, but she was around 7 when it happened. She swears she was fully awake and that it wasn't just some night terror, and she has no recollection of ever needing to get up from a bed at a second time to run. She wasn't the one that ever sleepwalked either. This was a one-time deal, and we don't know what it was or where it went, but maybe connected to the next one. Entity number 3. Recurring in my sister's dreams. There's a girl around her age, close to 15, that mostly tends to comfort her, just sort of laying and running her fingers through her hair and whatnot. However, there are the occasions where this very girl will be screaming at my sister in the dream. Something to note is that the screaming side doesn't ever show, unless my sister is about to have a nightmare. My sister still sees her and herself, and everyone that knows about it seems to think that she is an entity. May not hurt to keep around, but should still be wary of her, just in case. The reason the second entity might be connected to this one is because the singing my sister heard from the second entity was from a little girl. So I don't know, they might be the same. I haven't mentioned this to her yet, but might. Entity number 4. This is the most curious one that stands in the corner of the living room by the front door. If ignored, it will just sort of stand there and be gone when you look back. However, if you acknowledge it, it will start peeking around the corners of the house, watching you. It stands at, I want to say 6'7", is lanky, and just sort of leans its head out with its hands grabbing the corner of one of the props it up to the wall. When it gets like this, it does something the others have never or almost never done. That is, jiggling the doorknob. It does this until you go to open the door, where you'll see it peeking the next corner you happen to see. If it isn't too close, of course. Acknowledging it here will just cause it to bug you all night until the sun starts to rise. Ignoring it here will cause it to leave you alone the rest of the night, as well as everyone else that I'm aware of. Some things to note is that if someone else acknowledges it, it may choose to bug someone else. It tends to do this if it gets a physical and audible reaction from those who initially acknowledged it, so it goes to see who else it can get. The acknowledgement condition seems to only apply to my sisters and I, as we're the only ones it shows interest in if we make it obvious that we see it. This one is also different from the others, as it'll go anywhere in the house, no matter what, if you show it that it saw you. Entity number 5 resides in the kitchen. This one will rarely act outside of a specific condition being met. It acts simply too. Sitting at the breakfast bar facing the dining room, there is a painting where you can see your reflection of the glass when it's dark. Rarely, you'll see it behind you. This one is broad-shouldered and barrel-chested, which tapers down into the hips and whatnot. You'll never see anything past its presumably belt line. As for the last condition, it will relate to the last entity I'll mention. Entity number 6. New bathroom entity. It's the same entity that is currently in the bathroom near my room, which used to be where entity number 2 was before it seemingly disappeared. This one is a tall humanoid figure that has a neck severely hunched forward and sticks out. It stands in front of the vanity facing the mirror of the southern wall and just reach into it. With hollowed out eyes and mouth, it seems like it is silently screaming. The way its face looks and the way its arms and neck slope make it seem like it is melting ever so quickly. Or it may have been halted. This one is unique in the sense that you only ever get an image of it when you sense it. When you feel that it is there through a wall, you get the most vivid of images. The only thing between my sister and I does not stay constant is how we feel it looks as the colour. I find it to look like white TV static, with the hollowed out eyes and mouth being fully black. My sister finds it to be a solid black through and through. This one also interacts with entity number 7, which I'll elaborate on next. Entity number 7. This entity is the only one that goes in my room. I'm the only one that experiences it currently, but my sister said that she hates that room because of this entity. It's only ever active whenever you are trying to go to sleep, though it doesn't consistently happen. There are 3 specific spots in which it feels like I get watched from. It doesn't make you want to run like entity number 1, but it does make you insanely uncomfortable. This is probably the one that I have the second most blurry image of. However, if that specific condition relating to the final entity, something strange happens. It feels like my bed is surrounded by entities, which I have a hard time telling if it is just the one in my room or many from around the house, and that my blanket is getting poked all over the place, just firm enough to be felt through the comforter. This is where it connects with the 6th entity, as the southern bathroom wall that entity number 6 reaches through also happens to be the northern wall of my room. It does feel like something is reaching through the wall to do all the whole tapping thing. Entity number 8. This one is in the laundry room, and is the one you see in the corner of your eye walking by its designated room. It just looks like something is just outside your field of vision, or it ends up being too dark in that room to tell if there is something standing 6 inches from you when you're at the doorway. I've also seen it once in the corner of my eye in the living room, but that was during a period where the most random experiences happened that we couldn't attribute to any given entity, so I don't know. Entity number 9. This is that final entity that I've been mentioning this entire time. This one stands in the doorway of the hallway where the garage used to be, and the connecting hallway of that and the hallway I've mentioned a few times here. This one is probably the most problematic, and I'll explain why. This one is a humanoid figure that stands at about 6 foot and is your typical dark shadow figure. Just that it isn't overly lanky, it's just pretty average. However, acknowledging that you see it, and it catches you off guard, being in the darkest doorway in the house, will make it disappear. This is already odd, but this affects every other entity in the house. The activity of everything else skyrockets. The panicked feels on number 1 is amplified tenfold, and also affects the connecting hall. Number 4 no longer needs to be seen to follow you in your pulls at the door while jiggling the doorknob. Number 5 will appear more frequently and closer to you, while also showing a slow breathing movement instead of being perfectly still. Number 6 will make you start looking around and makes you hyper aware of number 1's effects when approaching and walking by the bathroom. Number 7 becomes consistent, while number 9 is still under effect and has that really awful thing with the tapping. And you can almost hear number 8 breathing and moving around in the laundry room, while also hovering behind you if you go in there. This one is the one that makes me glad that my older sister doesn't come around often, as she isn't used to it like my younger sister and I, so she acknowledges it all. These periods of hyperactivity caused by number 9 has increasing duration times each time it's noticed. First was a few nights, then was a week, then 2, then a month. The most recent was about 3 months, which is a lot since I like to walk around the house late at night. So those are all of the documented entities. My sister and I keep track of everything, just in case. An interesting dynamic to note is that if you go into the hall where the garage used to be, which is where the rooms of the grandma and grandparents are, at night after noticing any of the effects of any of the entities, you feel suffocated, as if it feels like all 9 of them are in there with you, as though they rush over to you to get past the threshold the doorway number 9 stands in. A few events that we can't attribute to any specific entities. Sharp knocking. Only I heard this. Was out in the living room at around midnight, coming up to 1 a.m, and heard this abruptly sharp and harsh knocking. 2 knocks. Issue is that there was a metal security screen in front of the door. I remember that I was pacing back and forth. I do that at night to get my mind sorted out and tired, otherwise I can't sleep. And just heard it. Instant panic. Adrenaline was rushing and I just briskly walked to my room. I was all hyper aware of every little sound outside my room. I was the only one who experienced this. Name being called. During the same 3-month-long period of the most recent number 9 effect period and the sharp knocking, I remember hearing my name being breathily but clearly said, as though someone were calling for me. It was 2 in the morning, everyone was zonked out, so it really freaked me out. Felt like it was just outside my door too, but I don't know. If number 4 was really wanting me to open my door or what, but yeah, no thank you. Only once, not again. Second knocking. My older sister recently acknowledged number 4 and number 9, so the things are active at the moment, especially number 4. I heard a single sharp knock that wasn't nearly as definitive as the one in the living room, but it was there. I was alone for this one, so I, as before, was the only one who heard this. Doorbell ringing. For a change, my little sister is the only one to ever hear this, but it's also reoccurring. She will hear the doorbell be rung and have that really loud ring doorbell. She tends to annoy it anymore, but it still tends to freak her out. So yeah, that's about everything we've experienced. I did hear something that, due to my Native American heritage, that myself and my family on my dad's side are all unable to be touched by anything, unless we give permission, but I don't know. Could be why I haven't been messed with too bad.